Good morning, good evening. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Be More podcast, where we inspire you to be a little bit more of every role within Salesforce ecosystem. For today's session, we are talking what it takes to be more certified. And when I was planning this session, I couldn't think of anybody else better to talk to about this than Dinesh. So, Dinesh, if you're able to introduce yourself to our audience, please.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. First of all, thank you for inviting me here, and a great thank you to all of who are listening or watching this. So, my name is Dinesh Yadav. I'm a solution architect at IBM and based in Atlanta, Georgia, USA. And if you include APs, I have around 45 certs and APs, and I also have MuleSoft, like other certifications as well. And I have a blog, dineshayadav.com, which is about like tutorials and Salesforce certifications. And I have two kids, one 8-year old and a one year old.
Yeah.
And I live with my wife here in Atlanta, Georgia. So that's it.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, and looking forward to diving into this. And not quite caught up with you. I think if I count my APs, I got 40, so I haven't quite got as many as you, but certainly use your resources myself. So I know that they're really helpful and useful. So for the next couple of questions, we're going to be talking about your role, and I guess probably better to imagine that your role is somebody that's trying to encourage somebody to be more certified. And
Mhm.
obviously, a big part in what you do and kind of how you achieve that is your blog. So, are you able to kind of break that down for our audience and explain kind of how you pull all of the resources and the content together, and ultimately what it takes to run such a blog?
Yeah, so it all started like as a hobby, I would say. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been in self education for more than 12 years, but I did my first certification way back in, I think, 2012. And then, like, again, I was not a big fan of certification initially. So I kept on working in ecosystem. But I think until 16, 17, I had very few certifications, probably two or three, I would say. And then during the pandemic, right, we had some more
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, there's nothing much to do outside. So I used a lot of time to start going through Trailhead and probably get certified as well, since you have spent so much time learning a product, right? Probably it was a good, I thought, as a good idea. Let's go ahead and like say community cloud or experience cloud.
Yeah.
Let's complete the modules and let's try test it out whether I understood everything or not. So that's when I started spending a little more time on certifications.
Hmm.
And then when I passed the certifications, I would share on LinkedIn mostly. It was not the article or anything. I'll just share
Yeah.
that I passed. And I kind of like that. And people used to reach out to me that, okay, I'm also preparing. So can you give me some tips? So I'll
Mm.
go back to, usually I used to write in pen and paper, not on note
Yeah.
thing. I'm old school, still old school person. So I'll just go back and maybe take some pictures of those notes and send it with people, and they like used to find it useful. So so going forward, I started probably let's write it down in a Word doc, a Google doc,
Yeah.
rather than on pen paper, because that will be easy to share. So I used to share those links initially. Then I mean, my wife suggested that why don't you write it in a blog,
Mm.
right? It started as a just blogspot blog, not even my own domain or anything. I started that,
Yeah.
and during the first couple of months, started generating a lot of interest. So probably that's when we decided let's do it in a more proper, organized way, and that's how our blog was born.
Hmm.
So now whenever I prepare for certification, I make sure that I make some notes, and probably when I pass it, I publish it, and I'm glad that a lot of people find it useful. But
Yeah.
the challenge is that like I took some of the certs 2 years ago, and a lot of things have changed
Yes.
since
Yeah.
then, and it's a mess to maintain that. Unfortunately, right, we have our own professional life, right, full time
Mm.
job. So that's a challenge which I'm going through right now. Like I don't have time to go back and right review
Yeah.
them. So that is something.
Yeah, I certainly don't despise those content writers behind Trailhead. The amount of refreshes and updates that they must have to do to those modules and those badges, over time as things change. How do you try to ensure that you're kind of at the forefront of that change? Like, how do you keep up with all of the new certifications that are coming out and the changes that happen to the certifications as well. How do you try to keep in touch with that?
I mean, for the release notes, I've been doing that even before I did
Mm,
certification. I used to follow all the release notes, and some of the time I may be the Spock for my project where I go through the release notes and do a presentation for the rest of the team. So that is
yeah,
something which I've been doing since like 2014, 15 or something like that.
yeah.
So I make sure that it interests me as I'm a big fan of the platform, and I'm always curious to know what's coming new. When like flows came up, I was so excited,
Hmm.
and I'm happy to see how right where they started and how they are right now. So so I usually make sure that I go through the release notes, and nowadays if I get time, I do publish a release note like snippet of some of those
Yeah.
features I liked or not. So that is one thing I do. And from certification, some of the new certification I was involved as part of the credential team, so I'm
Hmm.
also like aware of what goes behind
Yeah.
making us right how those process works through. And now I again like some we have some of my friends, we have a competition who has more certs, so now I have to doing that. So yeah, so they're chasing me. I'm
Yeah.
just results ahead of them, so I have to make sure that I have a couple of more than them.
Yeah. And I think that's,
Considering you, I have an eye on you as well, so let's see.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I think that the challenge is when Salesforce retire some certs and then you kind of have to make it back up, if you're in that competition.
Yeah, and yeah, I that's a sad part, right? I think I had 7 velocity certifications. 3
Mm,
were related to Trailhead and 4 they expired. So it was so like sad. I think I spent more than a year like getting those certifications studying velocity. And all of a
yeah.
sudden 4 certs were retired. Yeah.
Yeah. That must be difficult
Heartbreak.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Heartbreak. So
Mm,
what do you think, and perhaps a controversial question for you now.
mm,
Um, there is some kind of argument perhaps within
mm,
the community, and I don't know if you've seen it yourself, but like on LinkedIn and on X as well, about certifications not equaling experience, experience kind of not necessarily translating into certifications. Do you have any thoughts on that kind of age old argument that's out there in the community right now?
I mean, see, I myself, right? I told you I had almost more than 6, 7, 8 years experience and had less than
Mm,
8 certifications. So I've been on
yeah.
the both side. Like I had the experience, 8
Yeah.
experience, had 2 certifications or something. And then when I used to take interviews, people used to ask that, "Are you sure you have 8 experience? You only have 2 certifications." So it's both ways. So if you have
Mm,
experience and you say you have like couple of certs and 8 experience, people doubt your experience. They think that maybe right you're not claim you are not what you're claiming to be. And
yeah.
there's other way around there, 2 experienced people who have done 20 certifications, right? So that
Hmm.
is where I think nowadays we have seen because some of the certs are relatively easy, right? The new format where you have like 1 in 3
Mm,
answers, right? Those are relatively easy, and a lot of beginners are able to get multiple certification in short duration time. So that is where I understand a lot of people are saying that yeah, the certs do not match experience, but it's other way around. So if you are 10 experience, I people expect you to have certain certifications, at least
hmm.
the architect ones, right? Those
Yeah.
like architects, these ones, whether you want to be 30 certified, 40 certified, that may
Yeah.
not be required. But having said that, like I work for a Salesforce partner, and we have a
Hmm.
partner score where
Yeah.
those certs count to scores. So sometimes it's in our appraisal, like you have to get a few certifications
Yes.
here. So there are few things here. So definitely, there is no substitute to certifications, like substitute to experience, right? Just
Mm,
get what may not make you experience. At the same time, if you are experienced, I would recommend that you go ahead and get certified so that right it reflects on your resume as well as getting certification is a good way of learning. I'll tell you myself, right?
yes.
Initially, I used to work on sales, service cloud, sales cloud, experience cloud projects, and I was getting that point where I was getting same kind of projects. Then I
Mm.
prepared for CPQ cert, and then because it was on my resume, I got a CPQ project, and I have been working on Salesforce CPQ for last 3 years.
You're kinda
I
stuck
got yeah.
now.
So it's like
Yeah.
it's not like you have to be experienced to get a certification. You get a certification, and you may get experience as well. So for me, it has worked
Mm,
out. And again, I'm right now. Yeah, I had right. I had like Velocity CPQ certification as well.
yeah.
So my next assignment is Velocity CPQ experience, like right Velocity CPQ project. So sometimes getting a certification can help you getting a new project as well. So
Mm.
I mean, it has helped me in getting, so probably if, because I have financial services, right? AP.
Yeah.
Lot I get a lot of inquiries that I have an opening for FSC cloud
Yeah.
project. Are you available on bench? Are you willing to change your project and come join our project?
Mm.
So definitely, I definitely see a lot of value based on my experience. But of course, somewhere you have to start, right? Like, how do you
Yeah.
learn FSC cloud? How do you learn? I will recommend go through those, right, trailhead modules, get those super badges, get the AP credential, and I think you
Mhm.
are at least ready to get a project. So I'm quite in
Yeah.
favor of getting certified. I have myself benefited from certification, right, and getting
Mm.
assignments. And of course, once you get into a project, you learn it, right? I mean, there is no, again, bottom line is there's no substitute to experience, but certifications does matter in career growth.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think you touched on some really important points there, like having worked for Salesforce partners, like a number of different Salesforce partners,
Mhm,
I understand the kind of push to
mhm,
get certified and perhaps achieve a certification every quarter, and also the potential financial reward and benefit. Like some partners give bonuses for certain certs, like if it helps their partner points. Um, and also some partners specialize in different things as well. Like for example, I've did the CPQ cert and I
mhm,
had to take that a number of times to be able to be successful at
mhm.
it because I didn't have the experience, right?
Yep.
And even to this day, yes, I'm certified in CPQ, but I haven't really worked on a proper project. So I think those two things are important to consider side by side. Like more than happy to help
Mm,
or work on a CPQ project, but the certification taught me a lot. And I think for me, like one of the most valuable ones that I learned about, and again, it was a case of like just doing the cert rather than having the experience. Like one of the partner certs for security and privacy touches on Shield and Data Mask and Security Center. Like
mhm,
I hadn't really understood any of those Salesforce products before, but now I've done that cert, I've got that foundation, and I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe those products can help this client because they're in financial services or whatever it is, because they've got those compliance needs. Maybe security center could help with this, and the privacy center could help with that type thing. So there's definitely part of that, and I'm glad that we touched on it. Um, but I do kind of understand the counter argument. If somebody achieves 20 certifications in a year,
mhm.
they can't potentially be experienced in all 20 things, right?
Yep.
So I think it does need to be taken with a pinch of salt, but at the same time, at the end of the day, employers are looking for certifications. If you don't have the certifications, then you probably get screened out of the process because you're going to have a CV reader that looks for CPQ or Salesforce admin, whatever it is, and it's just going to discard you if you don't have those certs, right? So I understand both sides. What do you think about that?
Yeah, sure. I told you myself, right? Like I have like 8 years experience in Salesforce ecosystem, and I
Mm.
have 2 or 3 certs. And somebody told me during an interview that, "Are you sure you have like experience?" So they doubt. So definitely, I mean, I don't recommend like if you're 2 year experience and you could become 20x certified, but if you are 10 year experience,
Yeah.
get at least 10 certs or some certs, like at least the core ones, right? Those, right?
Mm.
Service cloud, experience cloud, and the app architect and or the system architect, all those, get that, because it gets that credibility to resume. As well as if you want to
Mhm.
work on a different product, like if you're tired of working on the same sales cloud, service cloud implementation, if you want, right, to go into communication cloud, probably getting, right, communication cloud AP, good,
Yeah.
maybe a good start to get start, right, getting yourself thinking towards that, and maybe helping your potential employers, or right, or in our big org, right, there are project managers who are looking for resources, right?
Mm.
They see in your resume that you are certain product certified, then definitely you get into that radar. Maybe it not end up in a job or a project,
Yeah.
but it is a good start. And as you, and again, even with like 12 experience, we are still learning, right? Salesforce
Yeah.
release, you have new features, so we can't say, even I cannot say that I have 12 experience and I'm expert at any one product.
Mm.
But get certifications or getting super badges, even super badges. Forget
Yes.
about certification because certs has some cost involved. I recommend people, if you are not able to afford certs because your employer does not sponsor or whatever,
Hmm.
go ahead and get those right super badges,
Yeah.
and they will definitely help you understand those right products, like those products, and get mastery in it, and maybe that will help you getting on your next assignment.
Yeah. I think that's solid advice there. And I think kind of touching on a little bit what you said, like if something interests you, then you could potentially study it and then kind of deviate down that path. Like for me, I'd worked with Experience Cloud for a long time,
Mhm.
a number of years, and I never really explored CMS, right?
Mhm.
Until I kind of got to a point where, okay, I'm going to try the CMS AP and ultimately study towards that. And now I'm thinking, oh, actually, I don't need a custom Lightning component for this. I can just use a CMS component with a button, You don't have that chain of thought until you know the material or you've learned it and maybe done the cert as a result. Do you think there are any certifications like that that really resonated with you and you're still using to this day, like almost like a breakthrough like certification really?
I mean, I was very fascinated about velocity. I mean, I
Mm,
initially, like the first few years, I'd never had like touched on this, but then I got an opportunity to learn velocity, and I like a lot of design patterns implied right in those managed
yeah.
packages. And I have used some, I've copied or used or inspired by some of those design patterns in some of the other applications I have developed for some of the other projects. So definitely, when I write study a managed package, or something like velocity,
Mm,
I try to write, see some of the values they have, right? Like they have stored procedures, or they have this, right, a lot of design patterns where they store a lot of data as metadata, right? How
yeah.
smartly they have done that.
Mm,
I've tried to use some of those learning in some of the other application. I have solutions for other projects. So
mhm.
I think velocity as a product, I have been quite inspired, like how nicely it is done. There are so many managed packages, but I
Yeah.
believe velocity now it's merged with industries, right? But the
Yeah.
way CPQ and the industry CPQ is designed,
Mm,
and all those, the product catalog,
yeah.
everything, I find it very impressive, and have used it several times. Some aspect of the design patterns used
Mm.
there.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. I think that's great. And do you like have a line between like if there was a new certification that came out and maybe it was in Slack or MuleSoft or Tableau or Salesforce, the ecosystem is kind of expanding. Like I've recently explored some like Slack certifications for myself, as I know you have too. Like,
Mhm.
is there a line where you would say, okay, actually, like I'm not going to do that because it's different to what I'm doing now? Or do you think that there are transferable skills that you have that maybe you learn in, I don't know, your sales cloud consultant that you can now apply to your Slack consultant exam? Do you think there's a little bit of that going on?
I mean, as an individual, I find it interesting to learn. I have done like so many
Mm,
things. I mean, so I did am, like Amazon cloud certification, right? I
yeah.
found it very interesting. Like I never knew they had so many products. I get
Yeah.
to touch a lot of them, right? So I find it, although I never use any of them in any of the projects. So for me, I think time is the line, because again, we have a full time job, right? And
Mm,
things
yeah.
are priority. So probably if I have some time, I would love to do, like I would always wanted to learn Tableau, but I never got time.
Mm,
I never got time because I
yeah.
wanted to.
Yeah.
So probably time is a constraint. Otherwise, I plan to do Google Cloud certification someday, but it's not planned at least this year. So for
Yeah.
me, time. Otherwise, I'm open. I'm open. For my blog, I learn like WordPress from scratch, SEO,
Mm,
so many things
yeah.
they are not required from my day-to-day job, but I learned WordPress and search engine optimization and all those things. So as an
Uh,
individual, I find it interesting to learn. There's so many things
mhm.
I learn. Like my son is learning guitar and he's teaching me guitar, so
Oh,
I
really?
love learning new things even at this age. So
Oh,
only
amazing.
time is something I wish I had more time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. So if there's somebody that's kind of looking to progress towards a particular certification, what advice would you give them in order to start their learning journey?
Yeah. So first thing is that give its due time. Like, I mean, yeah, don't
Mm,
do in a hurry. Like, suppose
yeah.
you're doing anything, just give its time. So if you go to trail, I mean, right now, right when we were in like 2012 or 13, there was no trailhead. So we just used to get
Yeah.
the exam guide, and I used to just take every sentence in the guide and put it in help and look for all the topics. And that
Yeah.
is how I prepared the initial exams. Right, there was no like blogs or training materials.
Mm,
We used to take the guide, take the sentence from the guide, look into the search. Okay, this topic has these things, and we used to learn like that. At least that is what I used to do. That is how somebody told me, and that is how I did first couple of certificates 2012 or 13. But now since Tailhead came, right, everything is so streamlined. So for each and every
mhm.
certificate, there is a trail mix. So that is the first I would recommend, the genuine source. I know
Yeah.
there are some sites elsewhere, but they are all taken from there. So why not? And some of the
Mm,
things lost in translation, right? So
yes.
there'll be some site on Udemy, but a lot of documentation comes from the content comes from Salesforce and help as well. So why go there? Just take from the source. So and give time. Say the cert say 60 hours, go through those modules. And if I
Mhm.
get a super badge or any hands-on exercise, I will recommend go, because most of the certs they expect you to, they don't test your knowledge, they test your understanding of the concept, right? So if there
Mhm.
is a hands-on assignment in that module, I would recommend that you go ahead and right get a organ those hands-on so that you're able to
Yeah.
understand, and probably make your own notes. I make my notes, right? But that is something based on my memory, because something I remember. So I don't make a note because I know it was so obvious to me. I
Mm.
don't take a note because it's so obvious to me. I will remember. I never. But for
Yeah.
somebody else, it may not be that obvious. So make your own notes, because
Mm.
those modules are like 60 hours. You and at the day of the exam, you don't have 60 hours to go back and reach each and every day, right? So
Yeah.
make a note so that just on the day of the exam or a couple of days before the exam, you don't have to go through all those modules, and probably do it twice or thrice, probably at least
Mhm.
twice. At least
Yeah.
I make sure I go through the module, because I don't have very good memory. So I make sure I go through those modules at least twice before attempting the exam. So these are some of the things, and for prep, and at the time of exam also, again, the way the exams are like it is multiple choice, right? So sometimes
Yes.
you may not know the answer, but it's so easy to figure out it derive the answer, because you start removing the right the least probable answer. Then one
Yeah,
of,
exactly.
this may never be correct, so now you're left with one in three, and then something like that you can do at the time of exam. So these are some of the tips I would like to give for somebody who's preparing for cert.
Yeah, I think those are great tips, and I use some of those myself. So I'm definitely a fan of notes, and
Mhm,
certainly understand um, if I know something already, then I probably won't make a note of it
mhm,
because I kind of know it already. But at the same time, if I don't know something,
mhm,
I'll be sure to dive into it a lot, make
mhm.
sure I understand it thoroughly, and perhaps like twice or thrice understand it um, to make sure that I can then apply it to whatever concept is tested in the exam, because the exam doesn't necessarily just test what you know, it's how you apply it as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. So thinking about your own journey really and all of the work that you've done to get the blog up and running and all of the great resources that are there. If you were to do that again, would you do anything differently? Do you think there's something that you would change or approach in a different way?
Yeah, I've learned over the period of time. Initially, I mean, yeah, the notes were mostly on my point of view, like I
Mm.
something which I could decipher.
Yeah.
So right, something which I noted wrote it for myself, and then somebody else I put it there. So probably get into more formalized way, like some of the other mature blogs. You're aware, right? How they
Mm.
write. So probably write in that way. But again, it remains a hobby for me. I mean, I have a full
Yeah.
time, so I don't spend more like a lot of time on this, and this is how it will be. I mean, I have no plan to take it more seriously. It'll just be a
Yeah.
hobby, and I like it that way, and that's how it's. People have loved it because
Yeah.
I'm doing it as a profession or something. It's just there, and it's free. Right? There's
Mhm.
no paywall or no login required.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I
Okay.
mean, yeah, some I think I could have done a better job at writing it, but again, I am not a blogger, full time blogger, or I don't aspire
Mm.
to.
Yeah.
So I think I'm quite happy the kind of love it got. I never thought it'll become so popular. I appreciate. I get feedback from a lot of people on LinkedIn.
Mm,
I meet them. They found it useful. I never thought it'll be that popular. But at the
yeah.
same time, I don't have any big plans for it. It remains a. That's it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I think it's kind of not really until you start doing something like this that you realize how international the Salesforce community is. Like we're right now sat here having a
Mm.
conversation at two different sides of the globe, you know?
Yep.
And ultimately I know of your work, you know of my work type thing, you know? Like I think it's a great ecosystem where we kind of come together and help each other in different ways. So I think that does really resonate here. If you were to perhaps summarize like skills or attributes to somebody that's basically an exam candidate or studying for an exam, are there any particular skills, attributes, or qualities that you think somebody should have to be able to best prepare for an exam?
I mean, you should have keenness to learn and
Mm,
learn non new things. Keep in mind, like suppose like you have been a sales cloud person, and now
yeah.
you're learning say velocity. You should be open. Okay, this is not my right. I've been working on sales cloud. I just want to focus on sales cloud. I want to. It's not going to be like that. You right at some point in time, you will get to. You have to know new technologies. You have to get on new projects. That
Mm.
is, I've talked to some people. They find it challenging. Right? They said that no, I know sales cloud, and I want to be in sales cloud for the rest of my career. So I tell them no, that may not happen, right? You may have to open
Mm.
broader skill sets, so start be open to learning new things. So that is where if you are right preparing for certification, be open to learn new things outside your comfort zone. So
Yeah.
suppose like you are a purely functional person, but maybe velocity cert may be a little technical, right? You may have to go and create a stored procedure. It may not
Yeah.
be coding, but it requires some button clicks in there. So you should be open, right, to going
Mm.
to your comfort zone. You may not be expected to create a stored procedure in the actual work you're doing. You may be BA, right, for a velocity
Yeah.
project. You may not be expected to create a stored procedure, but if you're doing that cert, you have to go outside your comfort zone, maybe get your hands dirty and create a few procedures and to pass the exam. So that is something I would recommend people to be keen to learn, ready to like go beyond your comfort zone
Yeah.
and be ready for failure as well. Right? I have failed.
Mm.
I mean, sometimes I think I'm most prepared and I failed miserably, and sometimes I think, oh, it's a tricky one, and somehow you just pass. I mean, but still, I'm not convinced. Sometimes you just pass, so I feel that I
Yeah.
failed. May have passed it. I feel that oh, I should have prepared a little more. So you should be ready to fail and learn from your mistakes. So again,
Hmm.
if you fail, you get right a feedback. So go back to those topics or areas where you scored least and go back and revise and right think about why what went wrong. Maybe you and prepare and try again. These are some of
Yeah.
the
Definitely. I think that's really important, like being prepared to fail,
Mhm.
because as human beings, we celebrate our successes really well and we're really vocal about that. But we don't necessarily, maybe celebrate is the wrong word, but share our failures too. I think it's really important to do that because ultimately we can learn from each other
Yep.
and learn from our mistakes and become better. And it wasn't until I was kind of asked to sit down for like Salesforce Ben and write an article about what I learned about failing Salesforce exams. I didn't realize like I failed like 18 or something like in total, but I didn't tell anybody that, right? And I don't know why. Maybe it's a British thing. Maybe it's just like a pride thing as well. I don't know quite what's going on in my head sometimes. But I think it's really important to share. I tried something and it didn't go to plan. Has anybody else tried it? Do you have any tips, advice, or great resources? Because then I think that starts the conversation. What do you think?
I mean, I don't have any resource as such, but I mean, you should be prepared. And I have failed.
Mm,
And, yeah, so it's time to go back and reassess, right? How I studied. Sometimes, like you are more optimistic.
yeah.
So then you go back to the roots, right? Going back to going through the entire trailhead modules couple of times, making sure that I doing the hands-on right
Yeah.
hands-on is one more time, create a
Yeah.
fresh org. Yeah, I remember there was a super badge for billing specialist. I mean, I took me more
Hmm.
than 2 years to complete that. I mean, yeah, I did once, and there was one module where I couldn't pass, and then I got busy with work, and then that org expires. Then you have to
Mm.
again from scratch again. Then also I couldn't pass, and I that also expired. Then the third time I created another org, went through all the
Yeah.
exercises again, and it was so satisfying for me that to finally pass. And so this is one supervisor which took me almost more than 2 years to complete it, right from the day I started, and
Yeah.
I got it. So yeah, you should be. Yeah, it's heartbreaking, but you should be prepared for that. That is how, right, the life is, right? You don't get
Hmm.
everything smoothly, and you should be able to reassess how you prepare, right? Give more time, and not every certification is made equal, right? And so some certs
Yes.
are difficult, so you have to adjust your study plan according to the certification.
Yeah, I think that's really solid advice there. Not every certification is equal. We
Mhm,
know that from some of the APs being 20, 30 questions, and then the Salesforce ones usually being 60 questions. They're just
mhm.
not quite on the same playing field.
Yep.
And I think it's important to remember that. So, kind of bringing today's session to a close a little bit, but before we do go, is there one thing you'd like to change or make people more aware about becoming kind of more certified? Like, is there a myth or kind of a common misconception? I know we've touched on one already, but is there anything else that you'd like to share to just kind of clarify for our audience, really?
So I mean, I think people are racing to, like, they want to have like too many certifications too soon. I
Mm,
would advise them, like, take your time. I mean, yeah,
yeah.
there is no rush. Even if you do one, right, one cert a quarter, like you have four certs, and if you are in industry for 8 to 10 years, you
Yeah.
will have all those certs, right? All probably every cert there. So don't hurry up, and do give proper justice to the one which you are doing it. Spend appropriate time for that, and don't chase numbers,
Yes.
and no shortcuts. I mean, sometimes, like, people, right, they try to take help, like they try to help from take like what happened, right? Some people on LinkedIn, they will just give me a question, and they give me the can you give me the answer. So I don't
Mm,
encourage those, right? Some people will get some question from somewhere, and they'll say, okay, I have this question, I have a doubt, can you give me the correct answer? So don't do that, right? I mean, getting questions from somewhere and asking people's help to give you the correct answer, rather than, so probably I'll give them the help article which has the answer, rather than giving them ABCD is the correct answer. Probably I try,
mm.
sometimes I'll ignore it, other times if I have time, I'll search for the help article, which all you have to do is
Amazing.
take this question, go to the help article, read that article. It'll take a 5 to 10 minutes. You'll know, right, the concept rather than the answer. So just, I will suggest people to not to take shortcuts, right? Not to search for questions, and try to, right, get answers from your help around, and
Mm,
shortcut. The idea of getting certification is to learn that product, because that will, the idea of having cert is to get a job or
yes.
get a project, right, and to do deliver in that project, right? So just getting the answer will not help you. Understanding the
Mm,
topics, what it takes to implement that product is what you need to learn, and will help you in your day-to-day job, right? You'll able to do your job early, right, or in a better way, in high quality. So that is what I'll suggest people. No shortcuts.
yeah.
Take your time, and eventually you'll have 46 certs. If
Yeah.
you spend like 8 to 10 years in industry, you'll have.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a race.
Mhm.
Take your time, I think, is kind of what I take from that. And also definitely a reminder about kind of sharing or using exam dumps that is not allowed. If you're
Mhm.
caught, Salesforce can and will take all of your certifications away. The
Mhm.
amount of times I have to remind people of that on the Trailblazer community, like I do see them as well. Sometimes somebody will post a
Mhm.
question and say A, B, C, D, and they'll say it's D, but can you explain why? And I'm
Mhm.
kind of like, well, actually, I'm kind of missing the point really here. You need to understand why yourself, because if that comes up in the actual exam, then you're not going to be able to answer it.
And once you put in that project, right,
Mm,
then you have to ask again for the help, because
yeah,
that is,
exactly.
right, to deliver, right. The idea is to get a job in ecosystem and be survive and be good at it, right. Not only, I mean, be good at
Mm,
it so that you get promoted and you rise in the organization, right. So that starts from the day you start preparing. You be honest to yourself, be
Yes.
honest to your career, right? So that you follow the correct path, and you grow in the right ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. And I think honesty, authenticity is really important, because people really respect those values. So unfortunately, we are bringing today's session to a close. But before we do go, what's the best way for people to connect with you? Remind us of the link for the blog, and are there any other kind of resources or tools that you wanted to shout out as well?
Yeah, so for resources point of view, right, I think partner learning camp. I think
Mm,
it's started in
yes.
2018 or 19, if I remember correctly, 19 or 20 somewhere. I mean, that is when I came to know that there's something called partner learning camp. So it
Yeah.
was like a life changing moment for me. I get access
Mm,
to so many modules which are not available right on Help or Trailhead.
yes.
So if somebody is not aware of PLC or partner learning gap, if you do not have access, if your employee is a Salesforce partner, get access to it. There's a lot of materials which is not available,
Yes.
right? So that is one thing I would like to share. Others, people are already aware of those famous blogs, right? Like I
Mm,
personally follow Salesforce Ben and Epixars, right?
yes.
And then you have a lot of YouTube channels. I mean, yeah, there there are a lot of community events which are happening. So just
Hmm.
figure out. Especially I'm a fan of in-person events. You
Yes.
get to know, right? There are a lot of virtual happening. If you're not able to join on in person, do join that. But just figure out, there's so many, right, community groups in almost every major city in the world. So figure out the one nearest to you, right, where you live, and try to attend the session.
Mm,
Get to right, meet people from your area, right? Try to present.
yes.
I mean, I remember the first presentation I gave, I was literally very nervous, right, standing front of 300 something people. So it's a good experience to start learning from your right community meeting in your area.
Yeah.
And then if you want to reach me, probably LinkedIn is the best way to reach me. I mean, yeah, drop me a message on LinkedIn, and then my blog is dineshadov.com.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks again for your time today. And hopefully, when this goes out, we'll inspire people to be more certified. So, thanks again. Thanks for tuning in to Be More with Tom Bassett. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave any feedback in the comments.